Good morning. This is the Wednesday of the 28th week. It's the same Lucan Gospel. I wasn't going to do this. I was going to do the letter to the Galatians, but now I'm rolling. And I kind of think, oh, yeah, I think of other things. But look at this text. This text is really aimed, it's got to be Luke is aiming at it. In his day it has to be their version of the priesthood and the apostles. Whoever is preaching the gospel, whoever is the leadership of the church at Luke's time. He's not talking about yesterday. He's talking about his own time. And with that, he's telling us about tomorrow and forever, our time. Watch what he said. And I think of this. If he was, maybe if he were in a meeting of the clergy and the diocese, the passionists, the religious, the Jebbies, whatever. This is an important lesson. I think every priest should meditate on this for sure, especially on a Saturday if they're hearing confessions. Listen to what he says. The Lord said, "Woe to you, Pharisees! You pay tithes of mint and of rue and of every garden herb, but you pay no attention to the judgment and to love for God." To judgment and to love for God. These you should have done, namely do the sacrifices, without overlooking the others, do what you're supposed to do. But woe to you, Pharisees! You love the seat of honor in synagogues and greetings in marketplaces. If that's not true of the clergy, I don't know what it is. It's not that you love seats of honor, but you're given it. You're given it whether you want it or not. Woe to you, you are like unseen graves over which people unknowingly walk. Boy, he's tough on us, our clergy. See? Then this is the best part. Then one of the scholars of the law said to him, replied, "Teacher, by saying this, you're insulting us too." And this is the most important of all the lines, I think, in the whole thing. And he said, "Woe also to you, scholars of the law. You impose on people burdens hard to carry, but you yourselves don't lift a finger to help them, to touch them." I think of my own time as a young boy in the church. I think that was an apt description very often of the burdens that the church placed. Without the assistance, we preached sin, but did we ever preach redemption? I wonder. You think of the birth control controversy. My Lord. It's not so much we had to preach what the church taught, but how did we help the people? See? How did we help the families? How do we help remove the weight and the burdens that came with large, demanding families? In some ways we did, but I'm sure. But I think it's a powerful lesson. There are some truths we must preach because they're true. I have no doubt that abortion is murder. We can never bend on that. But what do we do with the young woman or any woman who is pregnant and is frightened? It's an unwanted pregnancy. How do we help her? Right? She is in need. What community do we form around her to sustain her and help her? And if she's married, the whole family. We can't just say, don't have an abortion. We have to say, we're here to help you. We're here to help you. And mean it and act on it. I think we do in many ways. I think Catholic Charities, there's other organizations, but I think it has to be on a very, very existential level. It has to be in the level of the community, which is the parishes, the people themselves, the leadership of the church in the parish, that's the pastor. But the whole the whole entity of the church, the lay people, the clergy, the religious, forming together a dynamic community that not only preaches the gospel, but lives it in compassion. That it's a compassionate community, that it nurtures its weakest members, that it reassures and strengthens the frightened and the traumatic, those who are traumatized by life circumstance. that we're a community of active love, not just rules and laws and preaching morality. We preach morality, we have to live it. And at the very core, morality is the love of each other, the care we give to each other. It is not simply doing the right thing meaning what is prescribed, or not doing what is condemned. But it is in the sense of supporting a community of love rooted in faith, that we look out for each other. I always think of that. Can I give you an example? I use this to death, wear it out, but I think it's a neighborhood thing. A community is a neighborhood. You don't have to you'd have to grow up in a city for this. I don't think the counties, you're too spread out. I think you got to live on a city block. And you get to know everybody on the block, because there might be 3 or 4 generations living on that block. So the grandmother, great-grandmother's in the same house, okay? And what you learn is to look out for each other, because the security and the well-being and the safety, that's the best word, of the neighborhood depends on the watchfulness and the caring of everyone on it. Nobody is stranger to others on the block. We are friends, even if not affectionately. We are friends insofar we are available to look out for each other, and we do so. We look out for each other. I can tell you more. I said to my kids in class the other day, I said, if a kid came on the street there, they didn't belong there, 100 set of eyes were on the kid. They wouldn't touch them. They wouldn't say anything. But that young man or young woman is not going to get out of line either. Not going to get out of line. I remember there was an incident. Naturally, I got my foot into it, okay? I asked this girl out, okay? And I think I might have actually gone on a date with her. One, and then she properly dumped me. I met her at church. Boy, she was gorgeous, too. What a beautiful girl. Oh, I had great taste. Trouble is, I was ugly. But they weren't. Whatever. Anyway, she was dating a guy, okay? I didn't know it. One day in school, a friend of mine, I was only a freshman, I was 14 years old. Kid sat next to me, he said to me, hey, do you know this girl? I said, yeah, I'm crazy about it. He says, well, her boyfriend's got to kick the you-know-what out of you. Boyfriend? Yeah. Anyway, but they caught up with me, warned me not to call her again. And it was not just her boyfriend, but his friends as well. They could have done a job on me. He could have done a job. He didn't need his friends. I'm a wimp. So I did 2 things. I told Frankie Coppola, I said, Frank, Dean, this kid's going to kick my ass, whatever. But also, whatever. I didn't tell my family. But I did tell Frank, and Frank straightened him out, told him to back off. I guess he did. Yeah, Frank told me years later that he did. But I remember the guy came on the street. As I remember the story, my father was looking out the window, and he knew he didn't belong on the street. So when I got there, I said, what did that guy want? What does that guy want? I don't know. What did he want? So he knew he was a stranger. So it wasn't just that my father. There were other eyes on that fella. He didn't belong on the street. As long as he walked through it, he was okay. But if he stopped and paused and caused trouble, he was going to get surrounded by an awful lot of people. You see? They didn't know they just knew he didn't belong. So, I don't know. I tell you these stories because I tell them to my kids in class. That's a neighborhood. And in a lot of ways, that's a church. You look out for each other. You don't have to like each other, but you look out for each other. You see? And if you can, you lift people's burdens. What you never do is add burdens. And remember that line in the monastery, I'll leave you alone now. I remember this line about the confessional. We're there to lift men's burdens, not to put them on. We come to lift men's burdens. Every time I sit in that confessional, that's what I think. From 50 years ago, all this time, over 50 years of ministry, I remember what that priest said to me 60 years ago. We are here to lift men's burdens, not to place them. I will never place a burden on anyone in the confessional. Never. I'm there to lift that burden off your shoulder and assume responsibility for it. by my counsel in the church, I face God as well. I gave the counsel. And if it was the wrong counsel, you don't have to answer for it. I do. And I trust God's mercy. After all, he's the one who called me to sit in the confessional. And he knew who I'm, what I am, and what I was. Keep that in mind. That's the truth.